Hey everyone, this is Chris Miller, and you're listening to the EduMind podcast. If you're an architect, project manager, or a nurse, or maybe you're just curious about these career paths, then our podcast is one that you're not going to want to miss. Each week, we'll be talking to subject matter experts, course instructors, and other special guests to bring you the latest and greatest in architecture, project management, and nursing, and a whole lot more. Now, let's dive in. Hello, everyone, and Happy New Year. Welcome back and welcome to 2022. And thanks for coming to another exciting EduMind podcast. Again, I'm Chris Miller, and I got Jeanie Fan back for us. A great way to start the new year. So, Jeanie, welcome back, and thanks for kicking off 2022 with me.
No problem. Thanks for inviting me to start the year.
Oh, my pleasure. So last year we had a lot of fun, but we also covered some important topics. We talked about the ARE exam, some helpful hints and tips. We talked about some ways to navigate the waters. Then we also talked about some LEED and some green architecture. So we covered a lot of bases, but we're still in the field. So I know that this year is going to be a very exciting year for you. You have ventured out on your own, which is humongous. And, congratulations again. So I kind of just want to talk about your decision to venture on your own, the path and all that good stuff. So if I get off the wrong path, please, feel free to guide me back onto the correct path there. So, well, let's get started. Let's talk about it. I mean, the 2022, huge year for you. So enlighten us.
Well, it's very nervous to kind of, really telling the world about this now. And thanks for having given me this platform to announce it. So now I'm going to start my own little practice. I think what really, inspired to kind of start, I guess I'm kind of thinking back, it's like, there's certain, maybe it's just an architecture school, the romanticism, all what we study, right? All the architects, like, well, they all seem to have their own little practice. So I guess maybe subconsciously, always probably in every architecture student's mind, it has like, someday, maybe I'll have my own, or that seems to like the ultimate dream. But I have to say that actually there's a lot of, really big office. There's some very important people out there who's doing great work. You don't have to be like doing it on your own. And actually some projects you do need just like a big team. But I guess also over time for me, it's just actually as you get older, you work more, you develop your own point of view, your own worldview, or how you want to operate. So part of it is just for me realizing it like the certain different type of practice that I want to offer, kind of what I see I can do a service to the world and also current kind of society and situation.
No, that's great. And I agree with you. There's a lot of great large firms, small firms, medium firms for people to work at, and sometimes people are perfectly happy, working in a firm and being part of an overall larger team. I agree with you. I do think there's a benefit sometimes to being with a larger firm because sometimes you can tackle some larger projects and things like that. And then also the individual specialization doesn't have to be as high as well. You have other people that can do some of that work. But I also agree with you that, a lot of people, whether it's in architecture, maybe even in the restaurant industry, they aspire to own their own, right? They want to have their own, and they keep saying someday, and for a lot of people, someday never comes. But for you, someday's here. It is real. It's happening. It's exciting. And I give you a lot of credit for going out on that limb and giving up that security blanket, right? Because you don't know, when you work for a company or a firm, you kind of know what to expect every day, more or less, right? I mean, you might have things that pop up that are unexpected, but more or less, you know what you need to do. You get up in the morning, you take the subway, and you go to the office. But when you open up your own business or firm, there's a lot of unknowns. And so it's exciting. It's kind of scary at the same time. But, let's kind of talk about there's some advantages to having your own firm and there's some disadvantages. If you want to maybe kind of share some of those advantages and disadvantages with the audience, I think it'd be insightful.
Well, definitely, like you mentioned, the security to having working in an office, and also sometime with the bigger office, they can attract or already have kind of access
Mhm.
to different type of project, bigger project, or a more well-established firm that you can, yeah, there's a different kind of project types, and the financial security with that, and also then you kind of have a built up team that you know people you work well with that you can tackle different project. So that's the advantages of working with an office. The disadvantages of course that you know you have less control of
Mhm.
your own time and less you're kind of assigned a project. You don't have to, you know, you have some flexibility of choosing
Mhm.
what the office different type of project you they have depends on your level, but you know you're not the final called on, you know, if that's something project you like or you just happen that you have the time availability to do that project. um so that's kind of part of the disadvantage of it, and I think the other thing I realized is during COVID, kind of the office culture really kind of everybody had a reflection on how they want to work and what does it mean to be an office and how to operate. I think that the knowledge worker level, kind of the white collar level, the office culture needs kind of reimagining, re-examining. So I think then architecture practice itself is kind of in that scope as well. Um, there, I have heard a lot of my friends who do in office, you know, they've constant frustration working in the office when they, yeah, they don't get to have, you know, the flexibility of working. Yeah.
No, I agree, and you bring up some good points, both advantages and disadvantages, and I agree. COVID is has changed the world in so many ways, right?
Yeah.
And one of the things that we see on an everyday basis is you've seen how the working culture has changed,
Yeah.
right? I mean, it used to be where if you weren't at work, you weren't working. Everything had to be done from your office desk, but we found that it's possible to do just about anything that you were doing in office, you can do from home.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that has been one of the biggest changes. And I think employers are going to have to tackle that eventually. You can have a temporary plan in place, but eventually, when you have these remote positions or people working remote, people get used to it. And then they also realize, wait a second, I might even be more productive at home. Less face to face meetings. Also, the commute time is gone, especially living in New York. Commuting
Right.
is
Yeah.
a big deal. And also, I've talked to a lot of people here, and they found that they actually work longer hours, meaning like when it's
Yes.
5 o'clock, they don't have to get in the car to drive home. They're like, hey, I'm already home. Let me finish this up, and they'll wrap it up, and all of a sudden, it's 6 o'clock in the evening. And so productivity, I haven't seen it. It hasn't really dissipated. But the culture has to change.
Yeah.
And employees are realizing that sometimes working from a home environment, we've seen articles about people that have turned these vans into like these campers, and they travel the country working remote. And
Yeah.
I read an article about a lady that she just, she picks up and she travels, and one day she happened to set camp at the Grand Canyon. I mean, what a heck of a view from her office window, right? The
I
Grand
know.
Canyon.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think this has become a norm. I don't think it's a temporary thing, but it is. I think it, as you said, I think it plays a role in why people decide to whether they stay at a particular firm or they decide to go out and venture on their own. Um, I think, one of the advantages is, as you had mentioned, is, larger firms, they have the ability maybe that they already have existing relationships with companies and clients. So it's easier for
Mhm.
them to get business. But also, you have a marketing department. You got
Yeah.
a sales team. So you don't have to do all that on your own. But when you go out on your own, Jeannie's going to be a marketing person. You're going to be a sales person. You're going to be a financial person. So you're taking that all onto yourself, which sometimes people love it. It's a challenge. You have more control over it. But I think one of the biggest differences, at least I would find, is about the passion.
Mhm.
When you work for a company, you may not always feel like you have a lot of input in a particular direction that the company's going. Not saying they're going in the wrong direction, but let's say you want to build, homes for Habitat for Humanity, and that's a passion that you have. It might not be the same passion that's shared by the company, so you might have
Right,
to put that on the side burner. But now, let's say I come to you and say, "Hey, Jeannie, I'm looking to build a home for this family," and you're like, "Oh, okay. Let me spend a couple hours on the weekends, and I'll help you out because you have a passion for that." So you can
right.
kind of decide which direction you want to go in. And I'm we've been together a few times for podcasts, and I'd like to kind of throw this out there for 2022. You've started a new journey, you've gone down a new path, and I'd like for us to kind of follow you along that journey. I'd like
Yeah,
to kind of,
sure.
trace your pathway for 2022 and see where you went from day one, which is, oh my goodness, I still haven't set everything up yet, to where
Yes,
you are, like, in April and then again in June. So yeah, let's kind of track your journey through 2022. And I think the listeners will be able to see that, wait a second here. I went from having an architect that went from a large firm, they went out on their own, and it's something that I've also thought about. And now they can kind of see how you do it. So maybe they can make the same choices, or be like, okay, Jeannie learned this from not doing that, so let me avoid that as well. So you could kind of be like their
a
test.
case study. Yeah.
Ex-
Okay, I'll be a case study.
Absolutely. But again, I think as you mentioned, architecture is such a romanticized industry, right? There's
Yeah.
so many beautiful buildings, bridges, that people kind of get caught up in the whole idea of it. And they might think, hey, I can do this, and maybe I want to do it on my own. And now they have someone that they can tune into and listen to and kind of follow along with. So that's exciting.
Yeah.
So this might be too early on your journey to ask you, but I'll go ahead and plant the seed. So as you make your way and travel down this road, you're going to come across things where you think back, maybe you're sitting around the couch on a Saturday night eating a pizza, and you're like, huh, I wish I would have done this differently. So I'd love to hear about some of these things that you do, and you're like, I guess I could have done it this way, or maybe I should have done it that way. So I'm excited to hear about that. Um, so I'm guessing, and I'm assuming, and I'm probably right on this, is that you didn't just wake up one day and say, you know what, I'm going to open Jeanie Fan LLC. I'm sure it was a well thought out, well
Yes, yeah.
planned scenario. So can you kind of walk me through and say, all right, well, I started maybe 2010 thinking about venturing out on my own, and here's what I did to kind of get ready for 2022. And of course, I'm just making up these dates. But yeah, walk me through like the whole process. When did you just wake up one morning and say, hey, by 2022, I want to go on my own. This is what I
No,
need to do.
it took a really, really long journey. I felt like all the stars and planets and my celestial, everything had to line up and it happened that, you know, for some reason, I there's certain feel like I was attracting different kind of people in my life, and I guess it has to do with as I get more experience, the way I can express myself, advertise myself a little bit, that I am able to catch people's ears, or and then I start attracting projects. And even then, that wasn't still feel certain. You can't just like, well, someone called me today and I'm gonna quit my job tomorrow. But you still have to go down a certain path, explore. Is it really sticking? Or maybe they just want to call and talk, and then doesn't materialize in anything. So it's been kind of in the back of my head for a while, but it did took a while for all the right people seem to all came at the same time. Do I have a couple of connection, and they were very it's serious that they do want me to help them to design some plans and office layouts or a house. So once that seemed to, I feel like I have a little bit more security that it is gonna able to sustain me, just kind of every day paying rent. um and then also looking at what the current office project low is, and I was like,
Mhm.
okay, now maybe it's the time. And also because of COVID, and all of a sudden, we all work from home and you feel like, okay, I can do this.
Hmm.
I kind of felt like I had the infrastructure to start easier than before we have gone, work from home for so long. So yes, there's so much factors into it. And I think the other thing, kind of backtrack a little bit when you were mentioning how, work in an office, sometimes the office vision is different than what I have. And because of all these kind of global changes that we have, I I keep feeling the urge, the stronger and stronger of what I really want to have, what I really want to do with my skills and talents. That I actually, the bigger vision of what I want to start out is like I want to kind of more democratize the kind of this architectural design and make it more accessible to people. And also, actually, a lot of people will be surprised. There's still a lot of resistance to actually hiring an architect or talking to an architect because, like, most homeowner, or at least I'm kind of deal with, or small business, like, well, I know what I want. I'm just gonna talk to a builder,
Hmm.
and we'll just do it, right? But they are trained differently than we are, and spatially there's a certain way we see things differently that maybe we could add something to their value and what they're looking for. So so instead of just the older school of architectural practice, you go to an architect, he's the origin of
Hmm.
idea and you just follow him along. I want to be able to almost like a consulting
Hmm.
service, just have people to come and talk about it, like going to your financial advisor, or maybe not even you're just a bank teller. It's like, well, I have this I want to do. What do you advise? Like, just kind of start small, help them get more out of their living space. Because now we're all indoor a little bit more and working from home, and so yeah, I think that's part of my kind of catalyst, kind of at the very bottom of it too.
No, that's fantastic, and thank you for sharing that with us. And I'm sure a lot of people are, are probably thinking the same way. But also, I think sometimes people might have this thought in the back of their head. Maybe we can kind of help clear it up for them. Is that they think, okay, we'll take you for example, Jeannie. Jeannie goes from working for an architectural firm. Now she's going to work out on her own. So do those two no longer coexist? And I'm going to say the answer is no. They're
No.
still going to work together. Like, just because you're on your own doesn't mean, like, maybe the company might come to Jeannie and say, hey, Jeannie, there's a client that has this project that we just really can't take on right now, and we thought of you, so maybe you can, coordinate with this client and take on this project. So I still think that there's a lot of coexistence that
Yes.
can happen between the individual and the larger firm. So um, I'm thinking that's going to be exciting, but yeah, so it doesn't mean that, hey, you just drop, you drop everything and you're done. There's
Yeah.
still a lot of coexistence going on. One question I have, and I know it's probably 5 days into your new beginning, but when it comes to, I think one of the biggest, I guess, I don't want to call it a disadvantage, but maybe one of the biggest things that it's going to take a while for anyone that enters off on their own to get used to is the marketing.
Mhm.
Now you don't have a marketing department, or you don't have, but the nice thing is you have coexisting or existing relationships with people that you can reach out to. So how is Jeanie Fan going to market her services to the world?
Well, right now it's all through word of mouth, and from other mentor I have talked to, that's how most of them started. You literally don't have the time and the cost to kind
Mhm.
of do the marketing. So in the beginning, it really is just through connection. And the other thing that what we have now, kind of compared to, back then, is that we do have social media. That's
Mhm.
kind of a little quicker to start. Um, and also starting website now, there's so many platforms, it's a lot easier. Before, you would just have to hire someone
Right.
to do a coding and all that, which I built my own before too. Now I'm like, I'm not doing that anymore. I also am just gonna you know subscribe to a service where they will update all my back end code instead of like installing it myself. So
you
yeah.
you bring up a good point. Technology has
Yeah,
advanced so much that it makes it a little bit easier
a
for the
little bit.
individual to go out on their own. You're right. Social media is huge, but it's
Yeah.
also cost effective.
Hmm.
But also, designing a website, you don't have to be this Silicon Valley,
Yeah.
California guy to create your website. There's templates out there. There's, services out there. So you're right. You can design your own. So there are those tools that are available that make it easier. I
Hmm.
think social media is a great outlet. I mean, it's so much easier for you to reach out to, maybe potential clients or people that and just kind of spread the word. And then what's even
Yeah.
better about that is they can spread the word for you as well, right? They might
Yeah.
like a post, or they might, I don't know. I'm not a social media guy, so I'm throwing terms out there that maybe I don't really understand. But yeah, I mean, they could follow you, they can, like something,
Yeah.
and it just kind of trickles down the road. So, yeah, it's going to be exciting. But I do know that you're going to have great success. I mean, you're not only just an experienced architect, but you have so much knowledge that you can share with people that are preparing for the exam, that are actually going through the process of taking the exam. What are the pitfalls to avoid? How do I stay motivated? I think we go back to that. You just realize you got to do it. And
Yeah.
that's the underlining thing. So, I mean, yeah, I think you have a lot to offer the architectural world, not just potential clients, but just people that are maybe interested in getting into the field. You're a great resource to reach out to, and you shoot from the hip, which is great. You tell people how it is. And I know we talked about passion, and that is one of the driving forces for not only you but a lot of people to venture out on their own. So if I were to say, Jeannie, what do you want to bring to this profession, or what would your response be?
I think it's kind of linked back to what I kind of just mentioned earlier to make it more accessible to everybody. Um, yeah, I think that um, I actually have some notes here. Kind of have a lot of thoughts about like how it could be and should be, and but everything gonna kind of develop over time. I would like to be more kind of adaptable as well as time change, and kind of bring a new kind of idea and fresher way of just kind of doing the practice. I feel like in terms of design, a lot of it already has been done. I'm not like if I'm not changing a paradigm of a certain thing, then I think this kind of design should be just more accessible to everybody. That everybody could have a we we should demand more from our built environment, I think, because how many of us have lived in apartments that are just kind of like, well, it doesn't really work, but we just deal with it. But it's
Yep.
like if we know what we can have more, then the developer, who people who's building it, they will start to listen if we
Mhm.
know what to ask for. So if I can be that source of just inspiration or kind of motivate people to ask for more from the built
Mhm.
environment, then as a masses, maybe we can trickle up to have the people who's building it can provide something better for us.
That's fantastic. And you touch on something that it's not just something that maybe appeals or applies to what we're talking about today, but a lot of things, accessibility,
Yeah.
right? I mean, a lot of times people don't do things because they don't think it's accessible.
Yeah.
But knowing that there's a resource out there like you that is trying to make accessibility available for everyone, that way people can make not just better choices but choices that can maybe change their lives, or like for example,
Yeah.
you're saying, we discuss a lot of people working from home, and right now your home is your office for a lot of people. And you're right, there's oftentimes you're renting an apartment and you're like, well, this is what it is, nothing I
Yeah.
can do, I just got to deal with it. And so maybe you're not happy with your environment, which can have a trickle down effect on a lot of things. But if you make things architecture of accessible to people and let them know that they do have choices, or there are options, I think that's going to be a huge turning point.
Yeah, there's remedies. There's always a solution that
Mhm.
they might not think about it right away, but maybe because an architect, we are keep an eye out for other, we looked at other country or what the culture has done that we can adapt or kind of infuse the idea into our immediate environment and how that kind of trickle out to have as people demand more from the built space. We kind of started doing it with our food, right? People now pay more attention to what they eat, nutrition and exercise. But the other big thing is like our house, where we live every day. So we should also start paying more attention to that, because that's also a source of stress.
Mhm.
Also places that where they were not built well, maybe lead paint or pipes and all that could all plays into our well-being.
No, I agree. I agree. Environment has such an impact on your behavior, your mood.
Yeah,
And it's funny, like, sometimes people complain about, oh man, my working environment's horrible, it's dark. And now you have this chance to work at home and you're replicating that same thing at home
yeah.
because you don't think you can make a change. So this is exciting. There are options out there and there's people that are around that can help you. So, it's funny. Most of these people that are probably listening to us today are probably architects or people that are preparing to enter the field. But what I'm going to say applies to anybody, whether you're a project manager thinking of creating your own consultation firm, or you're or an engineer looking to maybe open up your own practice. You know, if you're on the fence or if you're thinking about venturing out on your own, stay tuned because we're going to follow Jeanie on her path. And I think people can learn a lot from what you're going to encounter and what you're going to be able to share. So I think it's not just beneficial to architects, but anybody that is thinking of doing something on their own where they're kind of leaving that comfort of having the security blanket of going to a work every day. And yeah, I'm excited. I mean, I know it's only January 5th, but I'm excited for the next time that we chat. And you're doing it in such a, I guess, like a open place, meaning like, you could be living in Iowa where not
Yeah.
many eyes are on you, but you're in the Big Apple. There's a,
Yeah.
there's a lot of eyes, there's a lot of architects. So it's going to be exciting to see how you make your own niche in this market. And we're along for the ride for sure, Jeanie.
Oh, thank you for I think the audience and you're gonna help me accountable. I now have, yeah, this is great that you guys were gonna keep me on track.
We're going to make sure that you're moving forward.
Yep.
And the nice thing is, you've been on a few podcast episodes, so you're going to get your own following where people are going to, let's say one day you're like, oh man, did I make the right decision? Maybe I should have
Yeah.
stayed. But these people are going to motivate you. They're going to help keep pushing you forward, and that's what's so nice about getting like an ecosystem,
Hmm.
and people are going to contribute to help keep pushing people forward. And I mean, that's what you've done for a lot of people here that are, thinking about taking the ARE, or maybe they've taken a division and they just haven't been able to pass it. You've showed that it's possible to keep pushing forward, and you'll get there. You just got to want to do it. So, I know we're coming to the end today, and there's some other topics I want
Already.
to. Oh yeah, we are flying by. So last time we kind of got together, and I think I took us down a different path, and we didn't get to talk about some of these other topics. So one thing I wanted to make sure we covered today is the meaning and symbolism that's embedded in style. So if you can kind of take us down and explain that, that'd be fantastic.
Oh, I think last time, because we talked about why do we have style, right? And then the
Hmm.
other side, I talked about because kind of style kind of came from the region, the
Hmm.
construction, the lifestyle, the location. But over time, some of those also carry meanings.
Hmm.
So a style actually have, meaning and symbolism in them. Like for a while, why do we always build our banks like the, Greek temple?
Hmm.
Because it's associated with certain meanings, and that's a style, right? Just it has meaning because it feels like it's there forever. It's grounded. It's grandiose. Is that has that kind of? It's the temple. It's the money that we worship. But then, over time, our worldview about money has changed. It's more
Hmm.
like about fun, about transparency, about banking. It should be like everybody have it. So then it become like this glass box. It's
Hmm.
more opaque, and I actually love walking around Manhattan or New York City around all the old banks that turn into
Hmm.
CVS or like drugstores. So I just love it. And so now that's like the new, the great Greek temple that you walk in is your local drugstore. So it yeah, it's a well we change. We're different kind of our reflection, our worldview, our what values are. So
No, I agree, and it's funny that these old grandiose banks are now turned into a Walgreens or a CVS.
yeah, yeah.
Uh, it's funny, like, it used to be that your exposure to different types of architectural style were limited because if you didn't live in a particular region, you didn't see it. But as we
Yeah.
discussed last time, that's not the case anymore. I mean, people bring styles from the West Coast to the East Coast to the
Hmm.
Midwest, so you don't have to go thousands of miles to see several different types of architecture. And I think that's what's pretty cool is, if you have the resources, then you can bring any style you want to wherever you happen to be. Um, so yeah, definitely an interesting trend that we've seen kind of evolve over the years. So, I am looking forward to the next time we chat, Jeannie, and see where you're at. See what kind of progress you've made. Um, but again, hey, thanks for kicking off 2022 with me, and also on such a positive note. I mean, it's a great way to start the year with someone that's beginning a new journey. So, thank you for letting us, be part of the journey as well. And
Thank
for
you.
everyone out there, wish Jeannie the best of luck, but also stay tuned because she'll be back many times to kind of talk about what she's going. But we're not just gonna talk about her path or her journey. There's other architectural topics that'll be
Right.
popping up, and she has a lot of wisdom to share. So for everyone out there, again, I wish you a happy new year. Welcome to 2022. May everyone have a safe and happy 2022, and I'll see you next week. Jeannie, thanks again for coming out with me
Yeah.
today.
Thank you.
You're
All
welcome.
right.
Hey, thanks, Jeannie. That was a good one.